But anyway, we're glad that you are here. There are others that are watching online, I believe, and that's great. It's great to have Richelle with us tonight, and Nanette, I believe, is that close? And anyway, we welcome you guys to Rockbridge, and thank you for coming. We're a small group tonight, but that's okay. We're glad that you're here. And I just want to offer a quick prayer, and then we'll turn it over to Richelle, and we'll get started. Father, thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you for your awesome love for us. And Lord, I pray that you would just help us to understand what's being shared tonight, and give us wisdom to know how to help our kids navigate the culture in which we live. Lord, that all that they do will become pleasing to you, and they will live wholesome and good lives for you. Bless Richelle and Nanette, Lord, as they share with us tonight. We ask in Christ's name, amen. Richelle.
Okay. Ooh, microphone. Gonna have to get used to that. All right, thank you guys for coming tonight. My name is Richelle Douglas, and I just want to preface or just talk a little bit about myself really quick. I'm just a parent. I own an art studio in Hallsville, so just north of Columbia. I don't have a degree in psychology or child therapy or anything like that. So I'm just like you guys, just really wanting to learn more about what my kids are growing up, the culture that they are, in and around, what their friends are doing, what they're doing, and all of that. And so I just started researching a couple years ago and just kept going and kept learning. And I joined the Stop Human Trafficking Coalition. It was a year or so ago, maybe, I think it was. I had felt like a call just to do something bigger than just, creating art and that sort of thing. And I'd always had a soft heart for, I have two boys. One is 12 and 10. I always forget their ages. So 12 and 10 years old, two boys, and, just thinking the things that they're going through, bullying, just stuff like that. My oldest has a real soft heart, wears it on his sleeve. And so just always thinking about, kind of what they're having to go through. And then just remembering as a kid what I went through as well. And so just leaning into, my mom would always ask me or make comments about, the boys playing on the baseball field and stuff, and she would get really worried about, somebody trafficking them, like somebody's going to snatch him up and traffic him. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? That doesn't happen here. It happens somewhere else. And so I started researching, and I was learning a lot more about what trafficking actually is, which is something we'll talk about tonight too. But I listened to a survivor once talking about the victims and the traffickers and the buyers, and she made a comment about how are we raising our young boys? How are we raising, boys that are growing up to be men, and how they treat women? And that just really stuck with me. And so I just kept learning and learning and learning. So my boys, they both have, normally I do a little, I have everybody kind of introduce themselves, but we're in a little bit different, space, and since we've got people watching online, we won't really do that, but I'll just kind of give you a heads up of what my kids, where they're at online and that sort of thing. But my 12-year-old does have a cell phone, and he has the ability to call and text. We monitor who he's got in his contacts. And my 10-year-old, he likes to play video games online. We have iPads, we have smart TVs. My oldest asked for what is it, the Oculus, the VR thing for his birthday. This is like a new thing. I know a lot of kids were getting it over Christmas. And so I did end up purchasing that with a lot of discussion and conversation with him in regards to the Oculus and that sort of thing. So just out of curiosity, how many of you guys have kids, let's say grade school to like intermediate, 5th grade? Okay, great. Of those, how many have access to the internet through like iPad or, computer, phone, that sort of thing? Okay, middle school age kids, and how many have phones? They have access clearly to the internet. And then high school, anybody have high school age kids? And I'm assuming they have a lot of access to the internet, phones, and that sort of thing. Grandkids, I know there's probably, grandkids, okay. And then ages of them, same kind of, they have access, right? So, okay. So I just want to, let's see here. So I just want to say that this is something that we're working together, right? As parents, we're working together as grandparents, aunts, uncles, to those who work with kids. This is a joint effort for us to come together and help our kids. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I just want to let everybody know that this is an awareness presentation. I'm going to be giving you guys resources. We're going to be talking about the culture that your kids are in, what it looks like for them, and that sort of thing. I'm not really going to be telling you like how to hook up devices or how to specifically monitor your kids. I will give you the resources for then you guys to look that up and to search through those, what's going to best work for your family if you want to choose. There's a bunch of different things out there, and so I have my go-to that I like to share with everybody. So again, I just also, normally I have a larger group with some other people, and since we're interactive more, we would also talk about, there's no condemning, no shaming, no judging. Parents might let their kids have free reign on the internet, and some parents may be like, absolutely not. Whatever your choice is as a parent, that's your choice. And so we're just, again, working through how to work with the kids and understanding their culture. So let's see here. And then I also wanted to say that I am not anti-internet. I want to make that very clear, or social media. I think that they can be a great tool. It's really great to be able to reach out to other people and to, connect with people online. But again, it needs to be moderated. We need to have awareness of what our kids are doing online, and, just knowing that, that they need to be equipped, because what is out there, there's so much information out there, and when you give your child access to the internet, you're giving them access to millions and millions and millions of people, opinions, and all sorts of stuff. So the next slide, please. Also, I want to say that oftentimes we think, with our kids, not my kid. My kid would never do that. My kid is really good. They make straight A's. They are, really good in sports, or, they're really involved in church. My kid would never do that. And that is something that you have to completely erase and stop thinking that way. And instead, we have to think, my kid could, or this could happen to my kid, or, because if we're constantly thinking that it's not my kid, then you're going to miss, something happening. So next slide, please. If you think back to when you were a child, the things that kids want most is to be seen and to be heard and to be loved. I mean, we as adults want to be seen, heard, and loved, right? We crave affection from others. We want to be, appreciated. We want people to understand us, and this is what our kids want too. Ultimately, the three main things that they want is to be seen, loved, and heard. So you just keep that in your mind as we're going through this presentation, that is what kids are craving, okay? Next slide, please. So this is just a small 3-minute trailer of Childhood 2.0. This is a documentary that talks about a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. And so I highly recommend watching this documentary. And after, I'll send out a clipboard that you guys can fill out your email addresses, and I can send you the link to that documentary. So if you could play that, please.
A long time ago, families were in communities. They were local, they were small.
I was born in the very depths of the Great Depression. I was put to work carrying wood, carrying water. I knew how to shell peas, I knew how to break beans. We still didn't have electricity.
I have 2 Instagram accounts.
I use Instagram,
Snapchat, and TikTok.
TikTok and Fortnite.
I can just scroll for hours on end.
11 hours a day.
It's been 8, 9.
Maybe like 12.
It's actually been a way that we can keep track of them out there in the real world where things really are scary.
The lives of kids were sort of changing slowly for a while, and then all of a sudden, most kids were able to get on social media, and that's when everything skyrocketed.
The rates at which they're experiencing problems continues to increase.
We also know that the teen suicide rate increased 56%.
Last year alone, we received over 18 million reports of international and domestic online child sexual abuse.
We have traded a false sense of safety and security for actually putting our kids in riskier situations.
I call it the race to the bottom of the brainstem. So it starts with techniques like pull to refresh.
Pretty much every guy has like an addiction to it, but no one talks about it.
But it's just faster now, and it's younger.
Well, yeah, like nudes of girls go around to school all the time.
At the beginning of the year, there were multiple suicides before school even started.
There were men that wanted to talk to children at all hours of the day and night.
I'm going to be shot.
On Snapchat, one thought it'd be a funny idea to talk the other one into committing suicide, and she did it. She's dead.
After about 6 weeks, we were able to crack his phone.
Kids right now are going to experience the worst of what we're going through.
I'm a little nervous.
The first time.
Do you think your parents know that this happens?
No.
My kid won't do that. My kid would never. My kid's school isn't like that. You're wrong.
Because what they see, they feel neurologically compelled to do.
Right now, we're effectively living in an experiment. How is this going to affect us? We'll find out.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, so one thing that I think is really important to understand is that I think most of us in here, with the exception of the littles that are in here, we all had probably a somewhat fairly similar childhood because we didn't have internet. I'm 40, so childhood for me was playing outside. It was there was no internet, that we didn't even know what that was, and so you had to deal with boredom, you had to make up things, you had to make believe, just all these things that look so much different from our kids now. I mean, my kids are constantly tucked back in their room wanting to play video games, and I'm just like, my gosh, like, get outside, go play outside. And it's like, what are we gonna do outside? Like, I don't know what to do outside, and it just drives me crazy because I'm like, there's so much to do, right? It's just completely different world from what we grew up to what they're growing up in. The creativity over boredom, phones back then, it was the long cord, there was no cell phones. It was like you were attached to the wall, you had, stringing it around, one corner to the next. I remember when we got call waiting, and that was like the big, huge thing, or if you could three-way call, it's just completely different from then to now, and then you have the rise of the internet. We use the internet as adults differently than kids do. We use it for work. As a business owner, a small business owner, I use it to share my art online. Honestly, if I didn't have a business, I wouldn't have social media. I really wouldn't. I would get rid of it because it drives me crazy. We use it to track and monitor our kids. I know some people that their kids are on Snapchat and there's like a location services through Snapchat, and so they use that to, keep track of their kids. And then for work and creativity and for connection. So next slide, please. But for kids, online is different for them. For them, this is how they communicate with one another. This is how they socialize with one another. It is a form of expression for them and a status symbol, popularity. We deal with a lot of, I remember my son, he's 6th grade this year, and he said, Mom, everybody's got a phone. Everybody's playing video games at school. Like, why can't I, have my phone? Because I have it locked down for him. He can't get on the internet whenever he's at school. He can't access games because I'm like, why do you need to play video games? Talk to your friends, right? So everybody's playing video games. And I'm like, really? Is everybody really playing video games? No, not everybody. So, there are kids that don't have, that aren't doing, but it sure seems like to them that everybody has got it. Everybody's doing it. So there's that peer pressure to have it. They're not cool if they don't have it, so, and then they're judged. But we see that 53% of kids age 11 have their own smartphones, and it's getting younger and younger. So next slide, please. So we're going to talk about teens and tweens and kids and addiction, screen addiction. So if you could go ahead and play that video, please.
Do you feel addicted to technology?
Yeah.
I could stop if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
I use my phone 4 hours a day, and Hulu and Instagram are my top used apps, and my mother is gonna kill me.
This week was 5 hours. I use my phone for 6 hours a day. On an average per day on like a weekend, I'd spend 2 hours on my iPad and 3 hours on VR. I play video games, I watch YouTube.
Weekly total is 45 hours and 26 minutes.
44 hours and 3 minutes.
52 hours and 20 minutes. And my most used apps are TikTok and YouTube.
How long on TikTok?
16 hours and 20 minutes, and on YouTube 6 hours and 30 minutes. It's so addictive.
I would say I'm very addicted to VR. It's a very addicting thing. I talk about it like 24/7.
I've had one of those nights where I'm just like, I need my phone. I need it, I need it, I need it. So I constructed myself this. It's my fake phone. It only has one app, and the app is Grey's Anatomy. So I've just been watching a bunch of Grey's Anatomy on my phone.
I needed my phone to make me feel better just for a minute.
I go down the YouTube rabbit hole a lot, where you just like video and video and video. I don't stay away from it, I embrace it.
I'll just find myself spending more and more time on TikTok, usually at 2 a.m.
There's no other way to entertain myself. If
Yeah.
I'm bored, then it's just oh, well, my
YouTube.
phone's there, so.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be able to talk to anyone if I didn't have Snapchat. I'd feel completely isolated.
What people put on their Instagrams isn't their everyday life. It's the highlights of their lives. It's the sort of best parts. And when we try to make their highlights our whole lives, it gets kind of obsessive.
I feel like the amount of likes you get kind of ends up validating
whether or not it's a good photo or I looked pretty in the photo.
Other people liking it is like, okay, they like me. I'm okay, I'm good.
I value likes in the same way I like getting compliments. Nobody doesn't want a compliment.
I use my phone a lot as a stress relief because there are a lot of things I have going on in my life.
I don't have to worry about if my friends like or do not like the posts and the social stress that I get.
What's addictive about Instagram is, just it's an endless bowl of soup. You keep going, you keep scrolling.
I feel like I wouldn't have any friends if I didn't have my phone. If nobody else had a phone either, I don't think it would be much of an issue for me. But it's the idea of like me being the only one without social media or me being the only one without a phone and feeling like I'm the weird one.
I'd say that the only real problem is Netflix, but after a week I've gotten used to not being able to watch it. But I am exercising my restraint and I guess that's good for me.
I also put a cap on my social media. I thought would be fun, shake things up, so I can only be on Instagram for 1 hour a day. Did this to myself.
Yeah, having social media definitely made me feel bad. I feel like living in a non-digital world is like a lot better than like scouting like your life for like pictures.
So,
do you feel
I'm curious, just a show of hands. So we all have cell phones. How many of us are on social media, just personally? How many of us find ourselves scrolling just for time and time? Yeah. So we're adults, and I don't know about you, but I have to take breaks from my phone, from social media. I'll throw out little things and I'll say, I have to take a break. I'll be back and I'll take a week off. I've taken a month off before because I know how addictive it is for me personally. And then I think about my young kids whose our brains are still forming and how addictive it is for them. I mean, it basically is giving them a dopamine hit every time they, get on and they look at social media or they get that like or they get that next follower. So has anybody seen The Social Dilemma? Yeah. So, I mean, this stuff is created to be addictive. It's created to lock us in. The algorithms that pop up and within social media, it's created to hook us. The same thing in YouTube, ads and that sort of thing. So, it's definitely an issue that our kids are facing. I know that I've had to talk to my boys whenever they're playing video games. Like they call it raging. Somebody's raging or you're raging and they're getting mad at the game. And I'm like, if it is taking your joy away, you need to step away from it. You need to take a break from it. So we have to talk about what it is to take breaks, to understand that when it's starting to make you angry and upset, to walk away from it. Because otherwise they'd just be on it, constantly. So there was a quote by Chris McKenna. He's the founder of Protect Young Eyes. And I can't tell you how many times I hear parents say this, and I know I've been one that has said this, but if I had grown up with social media, how hard it would have been, to have people taking pictures of you left and right, or just that all that documentation that happens with social media, how hard it must be to navigate and that sort of thing. But yet, why are we letting our kids just have social media at younger and younger ages, right? So it's something to really think about. And so we often say to delay as long as you possibly can. But so many kids are on it because, again, it is their world. It's what they know. It's how they communicate and that sort of thing. So let's see here. So like drugs, the earlier the age, the more addictive. Social media apps are built to be addictive, like like I was talking about. That whole pull down, it's very similar to a pull down on a slot machine. So that's why you have that swipe feature, because they know that that's an addictive kind of habit quality. Almost half, 46 of young people aged 12 to 16 feel they're addicted to their smartphones. I'm curious, whenever your kids, if they have a phone, when you take it away from them, do they get angry? Do they get frustrated? If they've been off of their phone for a while, does their mood change? I had one of my friends told me whenever her son got in trouble, they took his phone away from him, and she said for the week that he didn't have his phone, he was so pleasant. He was like this really cool kid to be around. So it definitely, it has an effect. It definitely has, changes their behavior. I mean, this is something, again, that we have to monitor, we have to be aware of. Let's see here. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, so I like to talk about the brain. I think most of us probably know that the brain doesn't fully form until the age of probably mid-20s, right? So we think about all the crazy stuff that we did when we were kids, even into college, some of the stuff that I probably did as a college student, and I think, man, why did I do that? And then we look at the students nowadays and we're like, why are you making those decisions? Well, it's because their brains aren't fully formed yet. They're literally walking around with half a brain. And I jokingly, but seriously, tell my boys that. They're like, well, why can't I do this? And I'm like, because your brain's not fully formed. I'm just being honest with you. Your brain, you have this part of your brain that's completely formed. That is the part of the brain that is the reward center. So it is the part of the brain that likes that affection. It likes help me out here. Just that appreciation, all the goods, it wants all the pleasure, right? That's the reward center, that's the fully formed right now as a young child, tweens, teens, and so forth. But the part of the brain that's not fully formed is that prefrontal cortex, right? That's the part of the brain that helps them to decide consequences and that sort of thing. And so it makes it hard for them to, foresee into the future, if something bad is gonna happen and that sort of thing. So keeping that in mind and knowing when your kid is doing something that they're gonna screw up and they can't often help it because, again, their brain is not fully formed. So the problem that we're seeing with extensive screen time is that, kids are looking at their phones all the time. They're not engaging with, their peers one-to-one because they're constantly at a screen. So we're seeing less coping skills, lack of social skills, more isolation with kids, lack of empathy and ability to notice social cues and facial expressions. I don't know if your kids ever look at you with kind of a blank stare, but I get this look from my kids quite a bit. And it might just be their age, but a lot of it is that constant, in the screen. It's, we need to be interacting with our kids. Our kids need to be interacting with one another. They need to know how to pick up facial cues when somebody is upset or when they're sad or when they're happy, or otherwise they're just kind of staring at you blankly oh. And then there's a disconnect from friends. To the next slide, please. So I want to talk about, let's see here, the likes and the follows. Again, just going back to how addictive the social media can be. Every time they get that like or they get a new follower, it's a dopamine hit, right? It's like a drug. So it's they're constantly looking for, they're posting to get likes, or they're posting to see how many followers they can get. And so the problem is that it's different from when, I don't know if your kids, they watch YouTube and they want to be YouTube famous, right? Or they want to be Instagram famous, or they want something to go viral. Sorry, let me grab a drink. Man, I'm getting super parched. And I'm going to say, if you guys have any questions or you want to chime in or anything, I'm used to like a more interactive audience, and I know that we're like live and stuff, but if anybody wants to like throw something out or question, please, by all means, throw it out to me, okay? Because it's so quiet. So I'm used to a lot more interaction, so I should have prefaced with that. I know, but I can, yeah. So, you know, there's that craving attention, right? They want to be seen, they want to be loved, they want to be heard. So they're going to the internet, they're on social media, and they're, you know, they're craving those likes, they're craving that attention. And so the things that we're seeing is, you know, they're the filtered images. I hate filters. I just, you know, it's just a big lie. You know, you have all these girls that, even though they know that the people on the other screen are filtered, it's still, again, they have brains that are forming. And so they are seeing these pictures and they're throwing a filter on, but then you turn around and you see yourself in the mirror and you don't look like that, you know? So we're dealing with that struggle too. So also the algorithm that you're having to deal with, that girls are struggling with body dysmorphia, anorexia, mass narcissism. I found a little information about mass narcissism when I was looking at it earlier today. 2 reasons for the increase, it says, on young people. Greater focus in recent years on building self-esteem in young people, and the internet and social media, which encourage young people to focus obsessively on themselves and their public image. So, you know, the constant taking pictures, the selfies, and that sort of thing. So we're seeing a lot of mass narcissism, and this is a global scale, right? Like when you give your child a phone, when they have access to the internet, when they have social media, TikTok, when they have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, they now have access to millions and millions of people, right? Whereas before, whenever we were younger, it was like it expanded your school and maybe the nearby school. Like that's kind of as far as you got. But now it's on a global level. So whenever you're dealing with kids that put out a picture and say that picture gets no likes, like what is that doing to them? Like, I know what it does to me if I post a picture of my artwork. You know, I post a funny, cute picture of my dog and she gets, you know, this is not even that much, but 70 likes, you know, on Instagram. And then I post a picture of my artwork and I get maybe 10 likes. You know, for me, it's like, oh man, my dog is getting more love, you know, and my artwork is like, nobody likes my artwork. So even as an adult, as a 40-year-old woman, it's like, man, that, you know, that kind of hurts. So thinking like when you have kids that are posting pictures and they're posting selfies, they're posting, you know, what they think is a cute picture, and then it gets no love, no likes, no comments, no followers, you know, it's devastating. It's devastating to them. So next slide, please. So at this time in history, I've heard this one, we are more connected than ever before, right? Because we have that connection through social media, through the internet, YouTube, all the things. But we're actually more isolated now than ever before. Because again, we're missing that in real life, that one-on-one connection. There was one of my friend's daughter, he was talking about how she met this cute boy that she really wanted to talk to. And so they were next to each other in real life, and you know, there was literally no communication. They didn't even know how to talk to one another. And then he said as soon as they left, they were on Snapchat and they're snapping one another. And so that's how they were communicating. So we're missing, you know, kids are missing that real life one-on-one communication with one another. So next slide, please. So cyberbullying, this is something that, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but we've seen definitely an uptick since COVID, more kids online and that sort of thing. But bullying whenever we were younger, you know, you kind of remember maybe there was like the not nice kid on the playground that was being mean to you, or there was somebody on the bus that would, you know, annoy you or whatever. Nowadays with kids, it follows them wherever they go, you know. At least whenever I was getting bullied at school by maybe some girls not being very nice to me. I could go home, I could cry to my mom. That was my safe place. I didn't have to worry about anything else. But now kids they bring that home with them, with their phones. So it follows them. It follows them into their room. If somebody was not being very nice to them at school, calling them a name, they get on social media, and maybe that person snapped a picture of them, in the hallway, and then did some weird, funny meme, and then posted it, and they're getting bullied that way, and so then they're looking at it on social media. So it's different now. It's the same thing, same bullying, same scenarios, but it's just more heightened, and it follows them everywhere they go. Let me go ahead and play the video, please.
I can remember the kid who you all just kind of knew was mean to people, whether it was on the playground or other places. I'm not going to say his name. I'm sure he's a great guy now.
The bullying happened at school or on the bus.
The ways in which this person could have access to my life were pretty limited. In this case, it was the 7 hours that I was at school.
Now it's always available. It's going to follow them everywhere.
Have any of you ever been harassed online?
Yes, 120%. People are still just like mean.
Yeah, they're called trolls. They just like troll you and try and make you feel bad. Trolls are just kind of a part of the society we live in nowadays.
Our bullying did not go in front of the whole world on social media. To them, it feels like it went out to the whole world.
We had recently at the school that my kids go to, where kids were taking pictures of other kids in the hallway or doing whatever, and then posting it on fake Instagram accounts. And that's a form of bullying, and these kids have no idea. And then they go on Instagram and they see these pictures of them that they had no clue, and then they're out there for the whole world to see. So it's an issue that we can't ignore and that we need to stay on top of again. So at a glance, children and young people under 25 who are victims of cyberbullying are more than twice as likely to self-harm and enact suicidal behavior. Again, there was an increase in the amount of bullying, hate speech among teens and children in the month since COVID lockdown began. All the kids that were home on screens, parents are at work and that sort of thing, there was a huge uprise. And then we have teachers that are constantly talking about how cyberbullying is like the #1 thing that they deal with at school. Next slide, please. I keep scrolling past my phone on here. So there are 5 common types of cyberbullying. Doxing, that's giving out someone's private info to cause harm. So if somebody told a secret or something like that to another person and then they went online and they shared it, that private info, or it could also be, where they live, or, something. There was a gal that was on TikTok and people were sharing her information, and then she had some guy show up at her house randomly because people were sharing her information online. Exclusion, intentionally excluding someone. I don't know about you, but I have FOMO, fear of missing out. So it's always hard whenever I see, people online that, got together and hung out, and then I wasn't invited. As an adult, that hurts. As a kid, we know that's gotta hurt really, really bad. And that happens. A lot of times what they do is they'll, take pictures of the group and then they'll post it on social media and they'll tag everybody to include the person that wasn't invited so that they see that they weren't invited. Masquerading, pretending to be someone you're not in order to hurt somebody. Harassment, we know what that is, and trolling. We know what that is, getting online and saying comments to provoke a rise out of somebody. Next slide, please. Oh, so we're getting into it now. So Does anybody have any questions at this, or any comments at this point? Anybody? No? Yes?
Is there a difference between boys and girls, how this affects one group more apt to be targeted than another group?
You know, I'd say it probably affects them the same, but you're going to see the effects on girls probably more than you would boys, because boys aren't going to say that somebody is, you know, bullying them. They're, you know, for the longest time in our culture, we have told boys to toughen up. We've told boys, like, you know, to don't cry, you know, like to suppress their emotions, to not share their feelings. Whereas with girls, it's like, if you're upset, come tell me all about it. I want to know, like, you know, here's a shoulder to cry on. So I think it affects them both equally the same, but I think you're going to hear from it from the girls versus hearing from it from the boys. So that's something in discussing these action steps that we'll talk later is, you know, when we're talking to our boys, is creating a safe place for them and letting them know that, you know, you can share your emotions. You can talk to mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. Like, you know, it's okay. Like, this is the place that you can do that. So, but yeah, that's a good question.
Another question I have.
Yeah.
Is, it seems to me that some parents use the phone as a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that's happening more younger and younger.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant and the 4-year-old gets behaving, the first thing they do is hand the child the phone. And I'm concerned that we're even getting our children hooked younger and younger than they were before.
And it is a valid concern, because that is what's happening, because it's easy. We're so busy these days, you know, we've got this and we've got that, and we're trying to, you know, work here and we're trying to get this done. And it's so easy to just hand them a device, an iPad, a phone, and say, here you go, you know, and it quiets them down. You know, then they're, you know, stuck to the screen. And it's so easy to do that. We get complacent. And so what I say is, put the phones down. Like, you're going to have, like, as parents, as guardians, you know, to kids, as mentors, we have to make a conscious effort to set it aside and to, you know, be with our kids as well. So, you know, when my kids are, you know, wanting something from me or whatever, you know, I put my phone down and I give them my undivided attention. You know, I have to also show them what it's like to put the phone down. When we were going to Florida, you know, we made a conscious effort to, like, you know, you can have screens for a little bit, but then let's put them down. Let's talk. Let's, you know, have conversation. If you go to a restaurant, you know, again, we want to, give the phone to a kid, but at the same time, put it down, interact with your child. These are the issues that we're seeing, is because when you were giving them the screens, then it's that lack of, you know, interaction, real life interaction with one another. And so we have to make a conscious effort as the parent, as the guardian, as the mentor, to do that. So, anybody else? Any other questions before we go on to, yes?
Can you hear me okay? Do I need the mic? Okay. So the TV used to do that, and you couldn't take the TV out of the home. And then we started having TVs in the van, a little bit of that. But it's just made it easier. Phones have made it easier for all of that. But I saw a really important quote on an elementary school sign today.
Use the mic.
Use the mic. Thank you. I saw a very provocative comment on a school board today nearby my church in Jeff City, and it said, and I thought of this, thought of you and all of you, it said, we can't hold kids accountable for things we've never taught them. Mm-hmm. So I know that even culturally, and I appreciate you bringing it up as well, because we tend to, as a culture, I think we know that there are different ways that even as the father versus the mother, the male versus the female, how we interact socially, how we interact with our children. And so those things kind of carry over. And so maybe as a parent who's concerned, want our kids to somehow behave differently, and yet they're modeling, as Richelle said. We have to also pay attention to how are we behaving, what are they looking at and seeing, are we talking with them the way we're wanting them to talk to their friends. And so it really is a very big learning curve for all of us, and why it's so critical, which is why Richelle is committed to this, and important that you came, because we are all, no matter what age we are, my daughter's going to be 27, but we have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old godsons. So we all, no matter what age we are, have to relearn, learn new things on so many levels. So anyway, appreciate your comment.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I felt like I was just talking, so I really do like the interaction.
My daughter and my son-in-law are teachers. And my daughter, I had to turn it on. I'm not tech savvy. My daughter and my son-in-law are both teachers. And they say there's a big problem with cell phones in school.
Mm-hmm.
And part of their problem is that they can't take the cell phone away in school because there's been such an outcry from parents saying their kids need the phone.
It's on.
It's on. Oh, cool. So anyway, is there a push in schools to do something about cell phone use in school, or are we just trapped because of parental pressure to have kids to have cell phones?
We need more parents and more people to speak out. I think, to do this awareness, to talk about and educate, the people here and the people that are listening, it is to bring that awareness so that we can speak out and say, because I don't think parents are really aware. And again, we've become so complacent. It's the ease of being able to get a hold of my child while they're at school. I can just text them. I can just call them. But I've heard teachers say that it's sometimes the parents are even more distracting because they're texting and calling their kid all throughout during school. And so the phones are a distraction even because of the parents that are calling their child. Whenever I was in school and I needed to talk to my mom or my dad or whoever, I went down to the principal's office and I made a phone call. It was as simple as that. The problem with phones being in school is, again, they have access to everything out there in the real world, and they're bringing it into school. So for even those parents who have kids that don't have devices at school, the person sitting next to them has a phone at school, and that person is scrolling through social media or looking at porn, which we'll get to talk about in just a second. And so me personally, I would be totally fine if phones were no longer allowed in school. If you drop them off at the door or they had to stay in the locker, I don't know the best way to monitor that. I put a thing out to teachers on social media asking, what do you think? Are phones an issue? And it was kind of a back and forth. But I hear my son talk about, they just got Chromebooks. This is something that they're trying out. And even if he does have a phone at school, but the teachers are to be able to do their homework, they need to have their phone, right? So if they have the one-on-one, the Chromebooks, then that kind of takes place of the phone. But when they're done with their schoolwork, my son's like, yeah, I can get on and play video games on the Chromebook. Or if I had my phone, I could get on and play video games. And again, it's let me just give you let me give you the pacifier so that I don't have to deal with you. And that's not good for them, right? I mean, that's basically what we're saying. I don't want to, because I heard another gal that was talking about, well, some teachers like it because then the kids are, they're busy, they're occupied. But again, it's I think I would rather have the kids talking and being a little bit more disruptive and actually having one-on-one, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm not a teacher, having one-on-one communication than scrolling on their phone, possibly looking at pornography. I'm sorry. When you allow kids to bring phones into your school, you're allowing them to bring porn. You're allowing them to bring predators. You're allowing them to be able to, just cyberbullying and the sharing the nudes and the sexting and all of that. Like, that is, you're basically saying that's okay. That's my personal opinion. But that's kind of where I stand on that. And again, I know there are parents that are like, well, I like to be able to get a hold of my kid. Well, you can call the school. I know plenty of parents whose kids don't have phones, and they contact the school to get a hold of their child, and it works, you know. So it's just something, again, that we've gotten used to. It's easy, you know, but I think there are ways that we can work with that, you know, if your child brings a phone, they can leave it at the office. I know some schools have done that. They have to check in their phone. Some teachers have a check-in box, you know, when they enter the classroom, but then they leave. But then again, you know, they have the phones in the hallway, and they can still, you know, take pictures or do whatever. So, but it takes, you know, it takes a bunch of us to come together to say, this is what we think, this is what we want. We think it's better if they don't have phones during school. So, anybody else? Any other quick questions? Thank you so much for that. So, we're going to start talking about pornography, because if your kid has access to the internet, they have access to porn. Let's just kind of time travel. And we think about pornography when we were younger, what it looked like. Magazines at the gas station, they have like the black, I remember there was like a black, it was in like a black cover, you couldn't see it, right? Or at the video store, there was the room, it said XXX, and it had the black curtain. You couldn't go back there if you were a certain age, right? And then you'd end up, there were, you know, the adult stores or whatever, you couldn't get there because you had to be a certain age, right? We do that in public, but on the internet, there's no age requirement. Kids can access porn at any time, at any given moment, without any restriction whatsoever. Exactly. So there is a lot, we deal with a lot of unsolicited. My son, whenever we activated his phone, he got a text message. I have all the safety features that I can find on his phone. And somehow it was connecting to my phone. I don't know how all that works, but we both have iPhones, and we somehow connected. And so I was getting his safety features as well. But he had gotten a random text message. I have no idea. So I told him, anytime he gets a random text message, unsolicited, you come to me, you block it, we delete it, and that's it. You know, we have a lot of communication whenever we got his phone. I then turned whenever he left, I clicked on it, and it said unrestricted access, because I have, you know, can't access anything, any adult websites or whatever, right? So I turned some information over to Detective Andy Evans with the Internet Crimes Task Force, and when he went through the website, it would have taken him to what he described as a really raunchy adult dating site. So had my son clicked on it, that's where he would have went. And it was completely unsolicited. We activated his phone, whatever pings up in the world of phones, you know, like you start getting like random texts. I know we've all gotten them. I've gotten them. There was a phishing scam or something recently where pictures of girls were actually going out. My husband got one. Fortunately, we have a pretty good, solid marriage, and I wasn't concerned that he was cheating on me, because the woman in the picture's text was, "Thank you for last night." So, you know, we know that, like, this stuff is just coming unsolicited. So, and again, even if your child doesn't have a device and they go over to somebody else's house, another child's house, again, they have access to whatever that child has access to. So, next slide, please. Okay, so this is Gail Dines. She is the founder of Culture Reframed. She does a lot of discussion about how to teach our teenagers how to have the conversations about pornography. So we'll go ahead and play this video.
My name is Dr. Gail Dines. I'm a professor of sociology and women's studies at Wheelock College, and I'm also founder and president of Culture Reframed, which is a non-profit that defines pornography as the public health crisis of the digital age. You know, I lecture all over the world. I lecture in colleges. What you see in the beginning is that the men, the hostility is literally coming off them. You can feel it. They're bristling with hostility towards me because they're obviously thinking, you know, what does this middle-aged feminist know about my life and about pornography? And then I start to talk, and you see their body, literally, you see their bodies change. You see the hostility kind of seep out of them because nobody before has ever explained to them what pornography does. And they are hungry for this. And at the end, they are lining up, some of them in tears, begging for help to get off pornography. Now, the problem is that pornography is a kind of stealth public health crisis. I think a lot of people, especially over the age of 35, do not understand the world of young people. They do not understand what it means to grow up in a society saturated by pornography. I mean, when you look back at our sort of father's generation, or even my generation, how did boys get to pornography? They found their father's Playboy, Penthouse, and they had limited access to pornography. Now, that was sexist and bad enough as it was, but really, you look back at that today with a kind of nostalgia, because today what happens is when they put porn into Google, they get catapulted into a world of sexual violence, degradation, dehumanization. They get catapulted into a world that I think for many, they had no idea this is what they were going to get into. And I think it traumatizes them. I think it really has a terrible impact on the way they think about themselves, the way they think about sexuality, intimacy, and connection. And really, you know, when you think about what sex is about, we call it making love. In porn, it's actually making hate. He makes hate to her. All the emotions that one links to hate, you know, degradation, fear, violence, disgust, all of those things are what he shows towards her. So this is the introduction into the world of sex of the young boy. And so when we think about effects, when it affects the boys, then it affects the girls. And the reason for that is that the boys think the girls are going to behave like the girls and the women in pornography. And so pornography really sets you up for disappointment. Now, people who often criticize pornography are called anti-sex, to which I would argue that if you want to be pro-sex, you have to be anti-porn. You can't be pro-porn and pro-sex. You have to pick one. And I think those of us who are against pornography are against pornography because we can't stand what it does to sex. We can't stand to see the way in which it reduces sex to an industrial toxic product, which is exactly what pornography does. The free porn sites were designed as a way to get young boys into pornography. So by the time they get their credit card, they're addicted and they're using it and using it. It's a perfect business model. And I don't know what kind of adult men these boys are going to grow up into, because we have robbed them of so much by introducing them to pornography at such an early age. We have allowed the pornographers to come in and to hijack our kids' sexuality into a sexuality that is predatory, that is violent, that is disconnected, and that reduces humans to just basically sex objects, men and women. So this is why pornography is a public health crisis. It goes from the individual and radiates out to families, communities, to the culture. That is why we have to be bold, we have to be courageous, and we have to make a stand and say, not on our watch are you going to hijack our children's sexuality.
So, I have so many things to say about this. first of all, pornography is normalized in our culture, right? Growing up, it was just kind of whatever. And I think there are so many people that still kind of think it's not that big of a deal. As a moral issue, I mean, right, like she was talking about, like the stuff, the Playboys back then, it's not good, it's not great. I mean, we're objectifying a human. But now, the porn that we see online is violent. It's really, really bad. And there's a lot of it, and it is very accessible to kids, whether unsolicited or they're searching for it. And so we really need to be talking to our children about pornography, what it is, you know, and that sort of thing, because if not, and they find it, you know, they're not going to know what to do. And so when kids have access to the internet, it's like another quote, you know, you have your coffee table and you have a bunch of books laying out on your coffee table, and you just throw some porn magazines out there, you know, and then you just let the kids hang out. I mean, nobody would ever do that. I mean, if you know, truly care and love your children, you're not going to just throw some porn out on the table. But if you're giving your child a device and you're not monitoring and you're just saying, here you go, you know, you're basically, that's what you're doing. I mean, they're walking around with porn, and it's not like the stuff in the magazines. I mean, this is visual, it's video, it's like, it's really bad. So the average age that we see unsolicited is 8, that kids come across porn exposure. It's rape on camera. It's rape on camera. That's what they're watching. It's sexual abuse. If we're not talking to our kids about what sex really is, what God's intention for sex to look like, then they're going to go to the internet, and that's where they're getting their sex ed. We know this because we have nurses, we have medical professionals that are seeing child-on-child sexual abuse cases coming in through the ER, and the common thread is because they're watching pornography and they're reenacting it on one another. It is a big, big concern. I cannot stress it enough. We worry about drugs and alcohol. We need to be worried about pornography too, because we're creating a society of people who just look at other people like they're objects. It is a social dilemma. There was a study that was done on a group of men watching pornography, and the part of the brain that lit up when they were watching pornography was the part of the brain that focuses on objects, not humans, but objects. So one of the most common searched subjects in pornography is teen. So we live in a very hypersexualized culture. And so we have, you know, a lot of it, you know, looking at young girls and the younger and the younger and the younger. And our culture is infatuated with it. So again, we have to be talking to our youth, to our kids, that their bodies are precious, that they are precious, you know, to value themselves. Because if not, then they're susceptible to this, you know. So it's also used as a tool to groom, and we'll talk about that later. Predators use pornography as a means to groom kids by desensitizing and normalizing what is, you know, potentially to be expected of them, or what's going to be done to them, or it fuels sex trafficking. We do a whole presentation on pornography and how it fuels the sex trafficking industry. So if anybody's interested in having us present about that, let us know. But And then things like spitting and gagging and punching. There was a clip on TikTok that was going around, and it was basically all about how when you're having sex, what you want to be done is you want to be spat on, or you want to be punched, or you want to be gagged. These are the things that our kids are seeing when they're on social media or when they're on the internet. If they're on YouTube, they're going to get ads that are just going to come across. Doesn't matter, by the way, what the age is that you have set on YouTube. Those ads don't have age restrictions, and so they're going to see whatever. So again, monitoring, talking to our kids, and having discussions about that. Next slide, please. Here's a good statistic. Porn sites receive more website traffic in the US than Twitter, Instagram, Netflix, Pinterest, and LinkedIn combined. That's a lot. That's a lot. Next slide. Any questions? Yes. Yes, you have a 6-year-old son and you're wondering what age to talk to them about pornography. So there is a resource that I would recommend. It's called Protect Young Minds, and they have a book that they put out, and it's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And it's basically talking about just that what good pictures look like and bad pictures. So talking about body parts and that sort of thing, and what is okay and what's not okay. And so I would recommend starting with that book and reading that book with them, and I'll have that linked as a resource. But I think, let's see, my youngest it was just a couple years ago when I talked to him, so he was 8, I think, when we were having the discussion about pornography. And I volunteer with the Stop Human Trafficking Coalition, so my kids equate pornography to sex trafficking. Perfect, because essentially that's what it is. But it's basically, I tell them that there are not very nice people out there that do not very nice things to other people. They force them to do things that they're not supposed to. They force them to take their clothes off. And when you come across something like this on the internet, what should you do? Just turn it over. If you're looking at a phone, or if you're watching something on the iPad and you see something that comes up and it makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes you feel weird, turn it over. So these are discussions you want to have with your kids, but also role-playing that with them. Like, say we're watching and something comes up, what would you do? Turn it over and come tell mom or dad, right? Tell them that I saw something and I don't know what it is. It makes me feel weird. And then you would then go from there, and then you could have that discussion. But yeah, I think we have to be talking to our kids younger and younger in age-appropriate language. And that resource, Protect Young Minds, is a really great resource, and the book is really good too. So it's not on.
Oh, there we go. So the book that's available, it says reading age 6 to 11 that she's mentioned.
They have a younger one too. Yeah. Okay, so I want to just touch on CSAM. We hear a lot of stuff about child pornography. That word is very, we hear that word. That is the word that we use for, everybody knows what child pornography is. However, we're trying to change the language to call it what it actually is. Because pornography is so normalized and because we are so desensitized to it, then in our minds, we normalize it and we're desensitized to it. So child pornography is child sexual abuse material, CSAM. So I will be referring to CSAM from here on out. Occasionally I'll say child pornography just to remind you guys, but that's what I'm referring to, okay? In 2020, and SGCSAM is self-generated child sexual abuse material. And that's basically when a child takes a picture of themselves and sends it. And we'll talk about sharing nudes in a few minutes, but that's what that is, okay? So it's self-generated child pornography. So CSAM, child sexual abuse material, or SGCSAM, self-generated child sexual abuse material. So if you ever hear anybody else talking about, or they say the word child pornography, then just let them know, hey, they're trying to change the language. It's actually CSAM, it's child sexual abuse material. And there is a bill that's trying to be passed right now on a federal level to change that language. So 2020 was a record-breaking year with more than 21.7 million reports of suspected child sexual exploitation. It was 2020. It was COVID. All these kids are online. The US remains ranked number 2 in hosting child sex abuse URLs. Do we remember what number 1 was? Was it the Netherlands? Yeah, I think that's what it was. Number 2. Tech companies reported over 45 million online photos and videos of children being sexually abused. So again, this is another concern, and as we keep going, we'll keep talking about that. So the next slide, please. Okay, so CSAM, sharing nudes. When a child shares a nude, it is child sexual abuse material. I've heard it referred to as the new first base. I showed my 12-year-old watch the little intro video and that we saw at the very beginning, and I asked him, I said, so what do you think? Do you think, what do you think about this? And he's like, I don't think this really happens at my school. And I said, oh, buddy, it does. It is happening at your school. And we live in a very small rural town just north of here, and it is happening there. And I know for a fact it's happening there because I've had parents tell me it's happening there. So it's happening younger and younger too. I want to say like 9 to 12. Nearly 1 in 7 children aged 9 to 12 admitted to sharing their own nude photos. This was research done by Thorne. And ages 13 to 17, 40% agreed it's normal for people my age to share nudes with each other. So again, pornography is normalized. We live in a hypersexual culture. Sharing nudes is not a big deal. Parents do it, younger kids do it, teens do it. It's the new first base. So we have to be talking to our kids. We have to be talking to our kids. One other thing I just want to say, when we're taking pictures of our own children and posting it online, and we're not asking them for permission, we're basically telling them that it's okay for anybody to take pictures of them and post it online. So it's another conscious thing that we have to be aware of. I would suggest asking your kids permission before you share their images online. This gets them used to the fact that there has to be consent, So even though it might be a harmless, cute picture of, your 6-year-old, just say, hey, can mommy share this with some friends online? Sure, My 10-year-old does not like me to post pictures of him online, hates it. He will get mad. He got mad at me once, and I said, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. So I ask him, I'll make a reel on Instagram with some of with the boys, and I'll be like, I want you to watch it first and let me know. What do you think? Do you like it? Yeah. Can I share it? Sure. Or if he says no, okay, I won't share it. Because he doesn't want me to. That is his choice. I have to respect that. So my older one, on the other hand, is like, share away, Mom. Tell everybody about me. Hey. So it's a popularity thing, right? Sharing nudes, all the popular kids are doing it. If you like me, you'll share it. There's a lot of pressure. It's attention seeking. But then kids are struggling with, there's that, back and forth between, well, if you share it, you're considered a slut. But if you don't share it, then you're a prude. So it's like a lose-lose for them. And oftentimes, you know, they don't realize, they don't understand, somebody's not talking to them about these things, you know, or they share something with somebody and they think that I'm good friends with this person, they would never, you know, but then that person then gives it to another person and then that person shares it. And how they do it now is they airdrop. Do you guys know what airdropping is? So whoever is in the vicinity, it's not like you're going through your phone and you've only got like 20 contacts, so you're just going to hit those 20, which is bad enough. One contact is bad enough. The nude being sent in the first place should have never happened. But you airdrop and you've got maybe 50, 60, 70 people in the vicinity, to include teachers, janitors, and whoever else, and you hit airdrop and it goes to everyone. And you cannot get those photos back. On the iPhone, yeah. I don't know what an Android is, but you know, those photos you can't get back. So we have to be talking to our kids, you know.
And she's mentioning that because it actually happened.
Yeah.
So we learned that. So keep paying attention as you're hearing of incidences. Know that hearing about it means like it's already been happening and it's going to continue to perpetuate in that form. Makes it very easy, and it's very unfortunate. And yes, that other book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, you can find both of those on Amazon, and the book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior is from 3 to 7, and the other one is for older.
I also want to share too, just kids call it these days sharing nudes, just so you know. They don't call it sexting anymore, because they're not texting each other and sending pictures that way. They're sharing it through other platforms. They're sharing it through social media. They're sharing it through messaging apps. They're sharing it through other ways. So if you're talking to them about sexting, they're going to be like, huh? I don't, like, they might know what you're talking about, but that's not going to them, it's sharing nudes. That's what it's called. So just some good language for you. We had, okay, first, in the state of Missouri, I'm just going to say this really quick. Missouri is one of the states that has not enacted legislation addressing teen sexting. As a result, teenagers, many of whom are minors, can face harsh penalties under the state's child pornography laws, CSAM, including felony penalties and sex offender registration. So if your child sends a nude, they're sending child sexual abuse material. That is, again, they can be convicted for that. Or if your child receives a nude and they now have in possession child sexual abuse material, they can be convicted for that. So this is another big deal. So we have to be talking to our kids how incredibly important this is to not be sharing nudes. And if you get one, to delete it, to go to an authority, to talk to somebody. I mean, there are so many kids that are also getting unsolicited, right? Because again, you're getting airdropped. So having these conversations. So sextortion is another concern that we see with the sharing nudes, right? So you get somebody that gets a picture, they call it trading cards. That's another thing that they refer to it as, is trading cards. You'll see maybe a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and she shared nudes, and then they broke up, and then the boyfriend moved and went to college, and now he's in college, and he's trading nudes with his buddy on college campuses. And then those can then be sold on the internet or, whatever, done with. So there were a few cases, actually recently, there was a Hickman coach, I believe, that was using Discord, which is a messaging app that gamers like to use. And he was getting CSAM, explicit images from boys. And so he was found guilty of being in possession with CSAM of boys through the app Discord. There was another coach in North Callaway, in his 40s, married, and has kids, and he was also found guilty in possession with CSAM. He was using Snapchat, and he would go in and pose as a younger boy, and he was sending messages out to girls all over the country, ages 13, 14 years old, and he was getting them to send him nudes of themselves. So he's pretending to be a young boy. You know, what young girl doesn't want a cute young boy reaching out to them, telling them how cute they are, how funny they are, and then, you know, again, seen, loved, heard. Remember we talked about that at the beginning? That's what kids are craving, this reward center. This is fully functional, but this consequences is not, right? It's kind of all coming together. And so he was getting them to send pictures, and then once you get one picture, well, then I need another one. And if you don't send me the other one, I'm going to tell so-and-so, or I'm going to send this out. So that is coercing those individuals. And then if he, in turn, sells those pictures, guess what that is? That is considered child sex trafficking. So let that one sink in for a second. Because oftentimes we don't think of that as child sex trafficking. We think child sex trafficking is something completely else. But if you have somebody who has images, CSAM, of a child, nudes, explicit photos, and they are selling them, they are getting something in return, that is trafficking. So, I'm fast forwarding in my slides. Go to the next slide, please. We're going to listen to this video real quick.
Meeting a teen girl online is actually pretty easy. You can go into any chat room and just start talking. Most of the girls are usually so insecure and desperate for
Attention from older guys is totally flattering. They're so much more mature and understanding than the guys my
age actually works to my advantage. They like to brag to their friends that they're dating an older guy, so I just play along and pretend I'm really interested.
In the same things I am. You can talk forever and really get to know someone without worrying about looks or whatever. That's the best thing about
chatting seems unthreatening to them, so they lower their guard. After a while, I start talking about how we're soulmates and how lucky we are to have found each other.
Other people don't understand. I know what I'm doing. If you really care about each other, there's nothing wrong with me.
Meeting them is the goal. Once I get them out of their house, well, that's when things get really interesting.
Online predators know what they're doing. Do you?
There we go. Okay, so just a real quick, technology, the engine behind the growth. Traffickers today use social media and online gaming to contact victims, especially children and teens, in order to groom them for the purposes of trafficking them. We're dealing with vulnerability. Traffickers go after those who are vulnerable, and kids are extremely vulnerable. Again, they're looking for affection. They're looking for someone to pay attention to them because they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be loved. Mom doesn't want to talk to him right now. Mom's got so many other things that she's doing. Here's the phone. Go to your room. I can't right now. I've got to do the dishes. I've got to make dinner. I've got to do all the things. I can't. So daughter goes to her room. She's on her phone. She's on social media. Ping, she gets a picture of a guy. He's like, hey, you know, I'm so-and-so. Does not matter if you have the account private. They can still send a DM. They can still send a DM. So we need to know who your kids are following and who's following them on social media. You need to make sure that you know who's contacting them in their message accounts and that sort of thing. So it's very easy for predators to contact our children. Next slide, please. We think of child sex trafficking, we At least I did. If we go back to the very beginning of this whole discussion, my mom was talking about somebody abducting my kids out of the ballpark, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen here. It happens overseas. It happens somewhere else, or it's the strange white van, yada, yada, yada. And the reality is that, yes, that does happen, but more often than not, we're missing it. We're missing the child who is living in our home, who is still eating at the dinner table, who's still playing the sports, who's still going to church, and they're being trafficked right under our own roof because we don't really know what it looks like, because we think it looks like something else. So you have to understand that child trafficking can happen when the child still lives at home. So let's see, I'm going to read the actual definition. Trafficking is a form of child abuse that occurs when a child under 18 is advertised, solicited, or exploited through a commercial sex act where sex is traded for something of value, money, shelter, food, drugs, etc. If you're, and I keep saying daughter, but this happens to boys too, right? The boys that the coach that was coercing them to send CSAM, explicit photos, over Discord. It happens to boys too. I think it's like some 30+% happens to boys. But I'm using an example of a girl here. Goes to a party with her boyfriend, and he gives her drugs. She passes out. And then the next thing you know, she wakes up and she's been raped multiple times by multiple people. And this boyfriend has received either more drugs or money from it. She's been trafficked. She's been trafficked. It does happen. It doesn't matter if you're in a small rural community or if you're in a big city, if you're overseas, if you're here. It happens. I cannot stress it enough. This is something that we just want to ignore. We don't want to think it happens here, but it does. So, online or in person, perceived trusted adult, right? So again, if parents are just kind of pushing kids, off, kids are going to seek it somewhere else. And if they have another adult that comes in and is pretending to be, giving them, attention and that sort of thing, then I think of it could be anybody, right? So it could be an uncle, it could be a pastor, it could be a boyfriend, it could be a coach, it could be anybody. So I want you to be clear that a trafficker can be anybody. Ages 12 to 15 are especially vulnerable. It's estimated that there's 500,000 predators active online daily. 89% of sexual advances directed at children happen online through internet chat rooms and instant messaging. So again, even if your child has a private account, they still have access to them. Kids on devices at night are more at risk. How many of you allow your kids to have phones in the room at night, door closed? It's happened. It happens. I'll raise my hand to that. I'm guilty of it. Yeah. So again, we have to be talking. We have to be monitoring our kids. We've now made it a rule where phones have to be charged outside of the bedroom. I've had a lot of conversations with my 12-year-old, and I like to say to him, it's not that I don't trust you. I do trust you. I don't trust everybody else out there. So, and sex trafficking, human trafficking in general, is the largest and fastest growing criminal industry globally. It's the second largest and the fastest growing. Does anybody have an idea what the number one, the largest criminal industry is? Number one. I think I heard somebody say it. Drugs. Yeah, drugs. Mm-hmm. And it used to be trafficking was third. The second was weapons. the illegal sale of weapons, and now it has surpassed the illegal sale of weapons, and it is probably going to surpass the illegal sale of drugs. Because you can sell a person over and over and over. You don't have to resupply a person, whereas you have to restock drugs. So, does anybody have any comments or questions on this so far? No. I know, it got deep. It got real deep real quick. Let's go to the next slide. So I want to talk about 6 stages of grooming. Target, trust, filling a need, isolate, abuse, and control. This is how a lot of traffickers will gain the trust of a child. They're looking for somebody who is vulnerable, which is like every child. They're looking for the child who might be shy, maybe quiet. They know who to target. They know who, is looking for attention or looking for affection. And then they build trust with that child, finding stuff that they have in common. Oh, you like to, let's see, what am I trying to say? Oh, your parents don't understand you. I know how that is. My parents never understood me either, or my parents don't understand. I totally get how you feel. I'm right there with you. Like, I get it. We have this like mutual thing going on. This is cool, And then they feel a need, whether it's through affection or maybe a child, maybe they get like a new iPhone, or they're getting jewelry or clothing. Kids that, within the foster care system, or, dealing with, Missouri has, I don't know if you guys know this, lost, almost 1,000 kids within the foster care system? 100,000? I can't think. It's a lot. It's too many. One is too many. And these kids that are just with, we know that they are vulnerable to being trafficked because they have needs that they're wanting, to be filled. And so these traffickers target them. And they fill those needs. And then they isolate them, right? It could be as simple as like Uncle so-and-so taking, little Sally to go get ice cream, and just taking her off. Like, oh, I know you're really busy. I'm going to take her. We're going to go get ice cream. Or I'm going to take little Joey over here, and we're going to go hit some balls at the ballpark. You guys can do what you need to do, right? So isolating them from, friends and family. And then there's abuse that then follows, sexual abuse or physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and then control. We talked about the use of pornography as a tool to groom. Oftentimes, kids are shown pornography as a means to desensitize and normalize what's going to be done to them. So there's a myth that it takes a long time for an online predator to develop a bond with a child, but it only takes 8 minutes. I mean, it's pretty quick. You find that common interest that a child has, and, you can start bonding with them right there.
So just to make sure that you're clear on the number, I don't know, somehow I made it a really, really big one, but it doesn't matter, right? One lost kid in the foster care system, but Missouri lost nearly 1,900 and something kids who were within the foster care system. They did not know where these children were, which many of them were assumed to be sex trafficked on the streets, different things, but this is a very recent thing that happened. If you do Google search, you'll find out more about that.
Does anybody have any questions so far or comments? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. We're going to skip this one because it's a really long video, but I'll send it out in a link in an email when you guys fill out the form. So talking about mental health, anxiety, and depression, this is something that our kids are facing. I mean, it is just, there's so much pressure, I think, on kids nowadays anyways, minus the social media. I know with my own children, the pressure, like just thinking about like competitive sports at a younger and younger age, right? And so that pressure to like perform and do this, and then you couple that with social media and all of that. You know, we talked about the cyberbullying. You know, you've got people that are making fun of you online, or you're not getting the likes and the follows that, you know, you were hoping for. You're feeling like you have no worth. Nobody sees you, nobody hears you, or maybe you are talking to somebody online and now this person has gotten an image of you that you gave to them because you thought that they were a good person, that you thought that they loved you, and so now this person is saying if you don't, you know, they're going to do this. And so there's just so much attacking our youth right now, so much attacking them. And the mental and the health that we're seeing with kids has just skyrocketed. I mean, I know there are numbers showing specifically from COVID on how much the mental health decline has gone up, but it was before COVID even started. I saw a graph where it showed a jump from 2017 that just jumped, skyrocketed. And that's basically when TikTok kind of came onto the scene, and Instagram, social media, and it just went through the roof. So mental health and emotional issues are more prevalent than physical danger. That's what we're seeing. Do you notice a difference in your child's behavior when they're online versus not online? We talked about this. I notice a huge difference in my kids' behavior. You know, I notice whenever they're watching some, I don't know, YouTuber, you know, on TV or on YouTube for so long, and then they get off, and now they're like kind of talking like this guy, like their attitude has just changed. They're probably a little bit more disrespectful, you know. So, I mean, it has an effect on them, the addiction, all of that. So, next slide, please. Suicide, it's the second leading cause of death among ages 10 to 24. Boys are 4-to-1 in suicide completion to girls. And we talked about this. You had asked about, you know, seeing the difference in how it affects boys versus girls. So what that means is that for every 4-to-1, for 4 boys to 1 girl, 4 boys, completion of suicide, meaning they have taken their lives, to the 1 girl. Because boys are told to suppress their feelings. Boys are told that, you know, you can't cry, that you can't show emotion, that you need to man up, that you need to suck it up. You know, I have my 12-year-old wears his heart on his sleeve. And he can get very emotional. And in the beginning, when he was younger, before I started learning and doing all this research, you know, I was like, dude, you got to suck it up. Like, you got to, you know, the other boys are going to make fun of you. Like, you got to, you know, and I cringe even saying that that's, you know, how I acted towards him as his parent. I was thinking I was protecting him, you know, from maybe bullying that he would receive, you know, from another kid saying that he was a wussy, you know. But instead, I have to be his safe place, right? Like, we need to be the ones that our kids come to when they're struggling. They need to know that it is okay to share their feelings, that it is okay to cry, to be upset. Oftentimes, you know, with girls, they're going to be the ones, we're dramatic. You know, we're going to be crying. The world is falling apart. It's just awful. Boys are more inward. It's going to be like kind of spurts here and there. You know, there might be like, I'm feeling kind of down today, and then the next minute they'll be joking and it's not a big deal. So it's really hard to tell with boys. 41.4% of tweens, plus 66.6% of teens were involved in self-harm suicidal situation. So the numbers are they're just huge. And so again, we have to be talking to our kids. We have to be communicating with them. We have to monitor, we have to see, we have to understand the world that they're living in so that we can help them walk through it. Because they're living out a social experiment. I mean, really they are. We have no clue how this is going to turn out for them. We don't. Because no other generation has ever gone through it. They're the first ones. I can't go to my mom and say, Mom, what happened whenever this person posted this picture of me on Snapchat? How did you handle it? She didn't. There was no. So even as parents, it's hard for us because we can't even go to our parents and ask them, like, what'd you do? How'd you handle it? So we're in this together. This is all a learning process for everybody, but it starts with being aware and knowing that this is what's happening. Educating ourselves, being proactive, being involved with our kids is so, so crucial during this time in their lives, because we can't shut down the internet. We can't take, social media. It's not going anywhere. I wish it would just all go away, but it's not. So we have to walk through this with them. We have to be there for them. Go to the next slide, please. Some of the concerns back to suicide, the issues that we see is that there's a lack of self-worth. Kids it goes back to the stuff that they're seeing, the no likes or the no follows or the comments. They don't know where their worth is. I mean, we know where their worth is. God knows where their worth is, But kids, again, they're wanting that immediate reward. They want to know right away. They need to know that. They crave it. And when they don't get it, they just feel like the world is ending. That picture that I posted that nobody liked, everybody at school saw that I posted that and nobody liked it. So how's that going to make that child feel? Like nothing. Comparison. As adults, we struggle with comparison. I struggle with comparison. Our kids struggle with comparison. They can't self-regulate. They don't know how to deal with difficult emotions. Parents are fixing it. We can't fix our kids' problems for them. We have to help them problem solve through it. My son was dealing with some very minor bullying situation. This kid was calling him names. To him, it was the biggest deal. He's 10. He's in 4th grade. Is that right? Yeah. And he just came home. He was just upset. And in my mind as a parent, I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like, he's calling you a name. Like, he's going to, tomorrow they're going to forget about it. But I can't tell him that. I can't tell him it's not a big deal, because then he feels like anytime there's going to be something that upsets him, he can't come to Mom because she's just going to say it's not a big deal. So we have to walk through that with them. I'm so sorry that this boy is not being nice to you. I understand how you feel. Or if you don't understand, I don't understand exactly how you feel. Can you explain it to me? I really want to know. I want to know, what you're feeling so that I can walk through it with you. I want to be there for you. They have to know that we are their safety net. Phones are a distraction from dealing with emotions, boredom, cooped up feelings, and feeling unproductive. When kids are bored, they go to their phones, they go to the screens. They don't know how to not go to the phone. I mean, even as an adult, if I get bored, I'll be sitting watching a TV show and there's a commercial that comes on, and my immediate response is to do this and just start scrolling during the commercial because I'm bored. I don't want to watch the commercial. And our kids are doing it too. But at this young age, they need to know how to cope with that. They need to know how to self-regulate. They need to know how to do all these things, because if they don't know how to do this, then they're struggling mentally. They don't know how to cope. Go to the next slide, please. Go ahead and play this one.
On the surface, everything might seem perfect. But the reality is that suicide is on the rise. In fact, it's now the second leading cause of death for young people. Just last year, 1 in 10 high school girls and 1 in 4 LGBTQ teens attempted suicide. Every day in the US, more than 3,000 preteens attempt to kill themselves. It can be hard to talk about, and hard to know how your child is really feeling. But there are warning signs to watch for. They include talking about feeling hopeless or worthless, making risky or self-destructive choices, and talking about death or suicide. But all too often, these warning signs are buried deep in their online activity. So, what can we do? Learn the warning signs. Start those hard conversations. Even if your child isn't struggling, they may know someone who is. Make sure to monitor your child's online activity so you can catch the first signs of trouble. To learn more, go to bark.us/beyondthescreen.
Bark is another good resource that I'll send out as well. They do monitoring all devices, and they'll alert you if something comes up that might be troubling. I'm actually have that on my sons. So one of the things that we had talked about with boys versus girls, when you're having a conversation oftentimes with boys and you're talking directly to them, there is a portion of their brain that literally just shuts down and they cannot physically make eye contact with you or like carry on a conversation. Like that's a thing. That is something that happens. And so whenever we're having conversations with our kids and they're doing this, especially our boys, like, it's because there is something in their brain that's causing that. I don't know what the scientific word is, but it shuts them down. So the best way to talk to, especially boys, is to do it either shoulder to shoulder. We do couch conversations. My son will come in and sit on the couch, and we'll have like an NBA game playing, and we'll just be talking. In the car is like the best place to have conversations with your kids because they can't leave, and they're behind you, and you don't have to see them whenever you're talking about really weird, awkward things. I had a conversation with my boys about where babies come from. I can't even remember how we got there, but somehow we landed there, and we were literally having that conversation. And we were laughing. We were laughing about it, but I can't imagine what that would have looked like if we were face to face. I know for sure that my 12-year-old would have been like, I'm out, But instead, we had a 7-minute conversation about, the female anatomy and how babies come out. Yeah, we just went there. We just did it. You know why? Because I'm normalizing those conversations. I want my kids to come talk to me or my husband about that stuff and not their friends. They're going to talk to their friends, but their friends don't know what they're talking about. A 12-year-old boy doesn't know what he's talking about if he's talking about sex or reproductive organs or any of that stuff. They just don't. So we have to be the safe space. I always tell my son, if you hear a weird word or something that you don't know what that is, come talk to me or Dad. I know you probably want to talk to Dad, but it's fine. We'll tell you what it is, what it means, and go from there. I'd much rather you find out and know what it is from me than finding it out from your peers. Okay, so here are some action steps. We're wrapping it up. I'm doing this on time. Okay, so delay. That is the number one thing. If your child is not on social media yet, delay is the best thing you can possibly do for them. I recommend delaying until, age 13, 14. As a parent, you're going to make the best choice for your child. Each parent is different, so, you choose, what's best for your child. You know your child best. You know what they can handle and what they can't handle. Excuse me. Screen time and boundaries. We have implemented screen times. They can only have, so many hours a day, and then it shuts off at this time. Their stuff shuts off at 8 o'clock. Done. We're done. There are times on the weekends where they're probably playing a little bit later or whatever, but they need those boundaries. Kids need boundaries. They're kids. They're kids. I don't know why we think our kids are capable of handling adult things. They're not. They're children. Digital detox. Take breaks. Take breaks. Cut out social media for 24 hours. Cut out social media for a week, a day, a couple days, whatever. Just take detox. We did a detox. It was our internet went out. The modem crashed or something. I don't know what happened. So for a whole entire weekend, we had 3 channels. It was like I was back in the 80s. We had no internet, nothing. Other than my phone and my husband's phone, but that was it. And we played games. The kids went outside and played. It was great. And they saw the value of detoxing. And so they know that it is good to get away. And now they'll play video games for about 30 minutes or so, if they're home, it's a week, or we have Fridays off at our school every however many days, teacher PLC days or whatever. And so I'm still working on stuff, and they'll play video games for 20, 30 minutes, and then they'll stop, and they'll go outside, and they'll shoot the basketball around, and they'll play. And it's really great whenever they do it right before I have to tell them to do it, because I'm like, yes, that's a mom win. You're actually self-regulating. You're taking, to take that time off. Safety controls, monitoring. Again, I'll give resources for good things that handle all that, because tech is so confusing. It really is. But there are really great resources out there that help with that. So be proactive. Oh my gosh, be involved. Be involved in what your child is doing. Be involved in what they are doing. We cannot be complacent with them. We just can't. Engage and co-play. I don't want to play Roblox. I don't. But my son does, and he thinks it's really fun. So I will crawl on the ground and get on my belly with him, and I will watch him play Roblox. And it is awful, but I do it. And he knows that I don't love it, but he gets excited to tell me about it, Or if he gets some new thing in 2K, NBA basketball, he gets some locker code and he gets, I don't even know what it is, some special card or whatever. Mom, I got the so-and-so Steph Curry. I'm so excited. Yes, that's awesome. Tell me more about it. We have to engage with them more. We have to know what's going on in their world, even though there are going to be times where we don't, What is okay, so TikTok, you're on TikTok, okay? Let's do the TikTok dances together. I know parents are doing the TikTok dances with their kids. Be involved in what they're doing, And then they're going to want to come to you. They'll want to do stuff with you. Because, again, they want to be loved, and they want to be seen, and they want to be heard. Model desired behavior. Oh, my gosh. Put your phones down. Put your phones down. It's simple. We're asking them to do it. We need to do it too. No secrets policy, contracts. I've got some contracts that you can look at. These are good. It just gives them, everybody's on the same page. This is what we expect. We all know it. We've all signed it. Seems so simple, but it's big deal. So if something were to happen, because it's going to happen, your child is going to make a mistake. It's not a matter of if, but when. Then you have a contract and you can go to it and you can discuss this is what we talked about. I'm holding you accountable, and you walk through that. No secrets, no secrets. Even the grandparents. Oh, don't tell mom I bought you this. No, we have to stop that because we're normalizing secrets. I know this is so weird. It seems so simple. But then you have a predator that comes along and is like, don't tell mom we're going to go here, or don't tell dad, or don't tell so-and-so. Little bitty secrets like that become normalized, that it just becomes a bigger secret and a bigger secret. So no secrets. Open open communication is so crucial. Again, central charging station, safe space, shame-free. I can't stress that enough. We cannot shame our kids. We cannot pass judgment on them. They're gonna screw up. Just know it. Just know it. We have to be their safe space. They have to know that when they screw up, and if they screw up royally, that it is okay that they can come talk to mom and dad. If they share that nude and it got leaked, they have to know that their safe person is mom and dad, because guess what? They're or grandpa or grandma or aunt or uncle, right? Because if we're not, nobody else is. They have nobody else. Next slide, please. So again, are you the trusted adult? Listen to your kids. Sometimes they just need to be heard. We don't need to just bombard them with all the information and all the things. Sometimes they just need to talk, and they just need us to listen to them. Be vulnerable and stay calm. Stay calm. If you need a minute, tell them, I need a minute to process what's happening, but I promise, or I need a minute to pray about it, but I promise I'll come back and we'll discuss this and we'll figure out what to do. But it is so important to stay calm, because if you fly off the handle, again, your kid is not going to want to come to you. Validate their feelings. I understand how you feel. I get it. Or how do you feel? Please explain it to me. I want to know. It's important to me. You are important to me. The shoulder to shoulder we talked about, and that they matter. Oh my gosh, they matter so much. Next slide, please. These are 10 tips to protect your child from predators. This is actually from a survivor of child sex trafficking. She put this list together. Be proactive. Again, we talked about that. Encourage extracurricular activities. It's important for children to belong to something, whether it's like the debate team or quiz bowl or sports or theater or whatever. Get them involved. Get them involved in something. It gives them a sense of self-worth. It gives them a sense of accomplishment. Teach media literacy. If your kids are online, they're exposed to everything that we're exposed to. They're hearing the barrage of information that we are hearing too. So we need to teach them media literacy. They need to understand like the fake news and all of that. They need to know what is real, what's not. You know, they're open to all of the people that are out there talking to them. They're seeing it too. Know who's reaching out to your child. Like I said, know who's following your child. It's okay to say no. That's so important. It's okay to say no. I mean, I have a hard time saying no as an adult. It is okay to say no as a child. Teach your child about sex, because if you don't, somebody else will. Spend time, not money. It's just you. That's what they want. They just want time with you. It really is important. Teach them about the world around us. We have to equip them in order to keep them safe. You can't shelter them. This is the world that they live in. This is the world that they're going to grow up in, that they're growing up in. This is the world around them. They need to know what's happening in age-appropriate conversation. That goes with sex as well. Teach them age-appropriately. Teach that helping others is important. Charity work, volunteer work, it's so good. Again, it goes back to giving them a sense of self-worth and value. And then get counseling if needed. It's as simple as that. If you need counseling, there are professionals out there that can really help. And so if it's needed, then get counseling. Next slide, please. So here's some of the resources. Like I talked about, Bark, they are a monitoring service for phones. They monitor TVs, smart TVs, iPads, all of that, those devices. They'll send you alerts whenever there's something going on, like if there's an incident where it could be bullying, maybe somebody is sending messages to your child, it'll ping you and it'll let you know. I tell my son, it's not that I don't trust you, I just don't trust anybody else. I don't trust that person out there or that person out there. I trust you, but not them. So this is why we're implementing it. Thorn is a really great resource. They do, they have a parenting section on their website that talks about the sharing the nudes and CSAM and all of that. Defend Young Minds, like I had talked about. Protect Young Eyes. They do a lot of information on social media, on new games and apps, all the stuff that all the tech stuff. They've got blogs, app ratings. They teach you all about all of that stuff. The founder, Chris McKenna, is really knowledgeable, and again, he's another one of those stories, just a parent that saw a need and he stepped into that need. And then they offer the Protect app, which is an app that just also helps parents navigate what's going on in the tech world. There's always some new app that pops up and it's like, my goodness, what is this? You know, so it's just keeping up with all the things. There was recently this thing that came out called Huggy Wuggy. Have any of you guys heard of Huggy Wuggy? Did I hear a yes? Yeah. So this is a nasty looking stuffed animal that gives out hugs, and when he hugs whoever he's hugging, he's basically whispering in their ear that he wants to kill them, like squeeze out their last breath. And this character it used to be a gaming app, well, it's a gaming app, but it has then a fan base that has taken it and put it on YouTube. And so it's also on kids' YouTube, and it's on TikTok, and it's all over. So kids are now seeing this, and then they play it on the playground, right? They're running around, and they're hugging their friends, and they're whispering. You know, one of my friends told me about how her daughter, they would hug, and then somebody would fall dead on the floor, and then you'd have to pick up all their insides before they could get back up. What is this? You guys, this is nuts. I'm sorry. This is nuts. These are kindergartners and elementary age students that are playing this. Why do we think this is okay? Why are we just letting it happen? I just don't get it. I personally don't. But we have become so desensitized to a lot of this stuff, where it's not a big deal. It's just, you know, because if it's not this, it's going to be another thing. But we really need to start stepping up and saying enough is enough. We really do. And so communicating with your kids. There's this thing. Have you seen it? Let's talk about it, you know. NetSmart, that is run by NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And again, it's another internet safety resource. There's also, for those who have not, if your kid doesn't have a phone, but you're on the fence and that you want them to have a phone, there's what's called the Gab phone. They also make a watch that looks like an Apple Watch. It's no internet, but they have the ability to text and call. So it serves the purpose of a phone, but without all the other stuff. And then there's a router. I didn't know this. You can change IP addresses. There are certain IP addresses that won't allow certain content within your home. So you can literally block, you know, all that other stuff through different IP addresses. So the router, Griffin router, is one of those that you can install, and you can literally go in and select the IP address that you want to cater towards your home, and then you can hook up all the different devices that you have, and you can turn them off, turn them on at a certain time. You can use filtering and that sort of thing. So I don't have the Griffin router, but I'm looking into it, and my friend has actually just purchased it. So they think they have like a 90-day trial. Why not? So my house is going to be safe. But again, when your kid goes to somebody else's house, you know, if you're not talking to them, if we're not having those conversations, and they're not prepared for when something does happen, you know. So I think that's it. That is the end.
Real quick, just a little bit more about NetSmart. We were talking about the different ages for that Good Pictures, Bad Pictures books. The NetSmart's website has different age-appropriate videos that you can show the different ages of your kids to learn about computer safety, online safety. Also wanted to recommend 2 documentaries. One of them is called Audrey and Daisy, and I think that one's on Netflix, but Audrey is spelled Audrie, and it's about the story of two gals who were assaulted by boys, and then the online harassment, and it's a very moving and powerful documentary. Hopefully it will empower you even more beyond what you've had today. And there's another documentary called I Am Jane Doe, and that will, again, help give you some background in that struggle and that fight. Hopefully will empower you to see the parents of their kids who were trafficked and sold online, and how they battled to get their kids justice.
All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
I know it's a lot of information, I know, and it feels heavy, but like we can walk through this with our kids. We just have to do it together. So, thank you guys.